We're now to have a Session 2, Renewable Energy Procurement in Advanced Conditions, Challenges and Responses from Leading Companies. Renewable energy expansion in Japan is lagging compared to global trend, but leading companies are continuously taking challenge on the procurement. In this session, first we are to hear from Masaya Ishida, Director of Renewable Energy Institute, on the latest trends in renewable energy, which is followed by a panel discussion by JCLP, Japan Climate Leadership Partnership, to hear how leaders' companies are working on these challenges. Now, I'd like to invite Ishida-san, please. Thank you.
So, the Director of Renewable Energy Institute, Mr. Ishida, will report on latest trends in renewable energy. Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us today. So, from my part, what I would like to explain is the recent trends in renewable energy, especially the roles to be played by the companies. I would like to give you some case studies. First, I would like to show you this pie chart, which is the energy mix of Japan on a nationwide basis. How the electric power is being generated is shown here. It's 20% and over for renewables, but it is mostly coal, LNG, and so forth. It is more fossil fuels. So we are emitting very large amount of carbon emission every day. And renewables are gradually increasing, but about 1 percentage point every year. So compared to the advanced countries in the world, we are quite slow. As a consequence, if we compare Japan with the other countries, especially advanced countries in the West, the other countries are reaching 50% or so. And China, 34% already. This is from 2024. So you can see how Japan is left behind compared to the other countries. So we need to improve the situation as quickly as possible. So we need to look at users like businesses as well as local governments and municipalities to try to encourage them to use more renewables. And as for the activities of the companies, the very important program is RE100. Aiming for 100% renewables. More than 400 companies have joined the RE100. And if we total the consumption annually, would amount to more than the whole of Germany's consumption of electricity. And more than half have been switched over to renewable energy already. So let us look at some of the major countries. For example, in the United States, RE100 member companies are using electricity. On the right-handmost column, the percentage of renewables is 67%, and in UK or Germany, close to 90%, and China, close to 60%. On the other hand, Japan is lagging behind at 36%. So for RE100, even for such advanced companies in Japan, they are still lagging behind. Sorry, the reaction of the slide is too slow. Now, for those companies who are the members of RE100, we are looking at the regional distribution. It was mostly Europe and North America to start with, but now the Asia-Pacific companies are growing and close to 50% of membership right now, including Japan. So the endeavors to aim for RE100 have spread globally, which means for a business going forward, you need to decarbonize. Unless you can do so, you will not be able to win in the global competition. That is very evidently shown by the slide. Now, more recently, you are looking at not only your own company, but asking your suppliers to do the same. And in August this time, for the suppliers, Sony Group has requested that for any products supplied to Sony Group, should be 100% using renewable energy, and by the fiscal year 2030. This is the news report of Nikkei newspaper, and where I have lined in red, as a headwind blows for decarbonization, Sony Group has shown very clearly that it would not stop going for global warming gas reduction. Now, using renewables will not only be conducive for reducing the emission, but also be conducive for reducing your cost. For looking at past 15 years, we have looked at the pattern of power generation cost. The yellow is looking at the solar. It has been reduced this much. And for onshore and offshore wind, more than one half. So solar and wind power seem to be the cheapest source of electricity. Now, what about Japan? On the left-hand side is the solar. And similarly, in Japan, the cost of solar is coming down. In 2024, for the second half, 1 kilowatt hour, it is 8.2 yen per kilowatt hour. Looking at wholesale electricity trading price, it is about 12 yen. So it is even cheaper than that. On the right-hand side, you can see onshore wind. It is still expensive, 16 yen per kilowatt hour, about double the solar. So onshore wind and offshore wind cost. How can Japan be able to reduce the level of cost would be important. And for the time being, users would be actively promoting solar power to be consumed. Now, in such endeavors and activities, what is prominent these days is the user-led corporate PPA. There are two elements. The on-site PPA on the left-hand side, that is to say, on the site that you use and consume the electricity, the power plant is being built, and you will buy the electricity being produced. On the right-hand side is the off-site PPA. The power generation facility is outside the premises. But in any case, the power generation facility is a dedicated facility for the consumer. And it is mostly long-term, 20-year contract at a fixed price. So this is the new system of power purchase. And as I have shown earlier, solar, the cost is coming down significantly. By using corporate PPA, it would reduce the cost of electricity. So not only big companies, but mid-sized and smaller companies and municipalities as well as universities are introducing PPAs. So let me give you one case study. This is a large-scale commercial facility which have introduced on-site PPA, and in a factory there is rooftop solar panels being installed on whole of the roof. And more recently, there are carports in the parking areas, and there will be rooftop solar panels being installed. And this is another example of on-site PPA. And then you will be able to take a shade from sun during the midsummer. And there's another typical example of off-site PPA. This is a case of JR West, Japan Railway at the West, to have their electricity to be introduced through off-site PPA. There's another case. I have given you an example of solar the system and being introduced through off-site PPA for the factories. So the users will be able to purchase renewable generated power at a cheaper level and be able to contribute to not only additionality element, but for the community farming as well. The off-site PPAs being introduced have increased in number. And this year, it is more than 100. This is looking at those which have been disclosed publicly through press releases. If we do include those cases where they have not been published, it would be double this number. Another advantage of corporate PPA is that users will be able to select the power generation facilities themselves. For some mega solar projects, there are a lot of criticism being heard, but you will be able to choose a facility where environmental burden will be less. Or you could choose a renewable energy project which would contribute significantly to the local community. So for more desirable renewable projects could be expanded on a nationwide basis through corporate PPAs. So I hope that universities, municipalities, and the businesses will be able to actively expand your renewable energy power to be utilized, so that through decarbonization to contribute to strengthening the competitiveness of the Japanese industry. So that's all from me, and I would like to turn over the baton to the panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ishida-san. So as Japan is lagging in terms of the expansion of renewable energy, but the global trend was also explained. Now I'd like to ask the speakers for the panel discussion to be on the stage. From the right-hand side, from Climate Group, Izumi Kotani, and the Manoshuta-san from Uplater Inc., and from Fujitsu, Mr. Masayuki Nishi, and from RICO, Satoshi Abe, and the moderator is Yusuke Matsuo from the Japan Climate Leadership Partnership. Matsuo-san, please. Thank you very much. I am Matsuo from JCLP, Japan's Climate Leaders Partnership. JCLP have 240 member companies to share healthy sense of urgency with regards to climate change and work on decarbonization to lead that to improve the corporate value. We are the network of such companies. And Ishida-san talked about the overall background of the situation. And I also did prepare some slides. Yes, the topic today is the following. I think although there are many wearing suits today amongst the audience, so I believe many are working for companies. In Japan, if we are to work on renewable energy, I do see that many are seeing challenges there. It's not easy to do so. So renewable energy is increasing in Japan, but globally, renewable energy is growing exponentially. But in Japan, every year's added renewable energy volume is slowing down. So in total, there is growth, but the speed is slowing. And also coexistence with nature, from that perspective, quite critical eyes are given from society, and also from the inflation. The cost is becoming also another challenge. So we are facing headwinds in terms of procurement of renewable energy. Given that situation today, we'd like to talk about how are we to respond to this overall situation. I do think that the situation is challenging, but it's not the first time that we're facing a challenging situation. That's my feeling. If you think back in 2015, when Paris Agreement was concluded, the companies gained momentum to start working on decarbonization. When I remember the situation then, the still, our environment was not easy because there was no renewable energy being available in a way. And till today, from then, many companies made efforts, and also administration or government also made efforts, and the situation became changed. And so today, I'd like to start from looking back at the past, how renewable energy has expanded to today. And then in the process, many companies, or especially the power-using companies, what did they do and what can they do? By looking back at their role being played, we like to gain insights as to how can we face the situation today. Now, as I mentioned earlier, it's not the first time that we're facing a challenge. Thinking back at 2015, 2016, although the companies were encouraged to work on decarbonization, at the time, the option to purchase or procure renewable energy itself was not really there. That was the time. As described here, the power users, companies, they were interested in procuring renewable energy, but they didn't really know how to do it because they were not on the market. But on the producer side, they did think that the renewable energy is important, but they were not sure if the renewable energy generated power could be purchased. So both ends were not able to make action. And the breakthrough was made from power users or companies. By users taking initiative, the situation was changed in a positive manner. So, RE100, which was talked about often today, this is the initiative to make declaration that companies are to aim at going 100% renewable energy. By making declaration, companies are to send out demand signal. Then that will convince power producers that once they produce, they can sell renewable energy generated power. So that was the key point. Through demand signal, the user companies broke through the impasse situation. Power producers were encouraged to make efforts, make improvement to scale their renewable energy initiative, and they also created new services, and the situation led to lower price. And then, when situation started moving, other users also gained understanding about the renewable energy, and they were encouraged to use renewable energy produced a power. And that is actually the mechanism of RE100. It is not a certificate scheme, but the RE100 is a mechanism to change the impasse situation. And from 2017, JCLP has been a contact point in Japan for the RE100. And today we'd like to hear from the companies who've been involved in the RE100 about the experiences. First, also the situation in 2015-16 was a situation I just described. There were no real option to procure renewable energy. Given that, at the time, going to renewable energy was apparently a very challenging, but RICO took initiative and rose its hand. And actually, we now have a speaker from RICO who are involved in the different first step for the RICO. We'd like to hear from Abe-san about the situation at the time. Thank you.
Over to you, Sir Abe-san. Thank you. At RICO, I am at the ESG strategy division, and I'm responsible for ESG strategy overall, as has been discussed. As we, as a Japanese company, was the first to declare joining RE100. 2017, April, that was when it was. And from the start of this conference, there's talk about headwinds for renewable energy, and that has been repeated. Looking back in 2017, it's not a headwind, but people just questioned, are you going to introduce renewable energy? People questioned. And amidst this situation, why did RICO declare RE100? And applying for RE100. In 2015, the Paris Agreement reached agreement, and at that time, from low C to decarbonization, that has to be the transition, it was said. In 2015, we have to try to achieve, in effect, zero. And that direction was pointed to. If we look at Japan, there was no nuclear power plants in operation, and people said decarbonization is fine. But how do you achieve that? And the situation was very difficult in terms of our society. And with the agreement, in Paris Agreement, within RICO, there was a movement to try to review environmental goals and to declare net zero in 2050. And we started discussions in-house. And how to achieve that? When we thought about this, to use electricity derived from renewable energy. That is inevitable. That was the conclusion that we reached. And within Japan, it was difficult. But if we look throughout the world, renewable energies are coming down, and the environment is in place so we can procure. And Japan is the only country which is saying that we cannot procure renewable energy. And so it's the chicken and egg question phenomenon, where the consumers want to use renewable energy. They say they want to wait until prices come down. And the supply side would say it's expensive, but it's good for the environment. So for those companies that are trying to do good for the environment, please buy. There was a stalemate to achieve a breakthrough. The consumers had to change. Electricity, if you, a company set up a power plant, people bought from that power plant. There was no alternative. But in the future, we felt that consumers would define what kind of electricity that they would want by showing their intent. We felt that this would bring about change, and that was our conclusion. And so we decided that we would use renewable energy. To use when we use renewable energy, do we declare joining RE100, or do we not declare? But we felt that in trying to put out a signal to the world, it's better for us to declare that we would join RE100. And so that is the backdrop to our joining RE100. Thank you.
Yes, so when you made the declaration for the first time in Japan, I was impressed. At the same time, well, there are many people who asked the question if that can be really feasible. When RICO made the first move, after that, well, we have like 90 companies in Japan which declared RE100, so we do have a large number of companies, but there are some hurdles. And the first penguin overcame the first hurdle, and then the second player was Fujitsu. Today, the corporate culture of Fujitsu must have been changed, but it's rather difficult for me to find right way. But at the time, Fujitsu was rather conservative company, like a traditional Japanese companies. Like they always had to make sure if things are feasible before taking actions. I think that was the culture then. But RE100 was declared by that Fujitsu. That was a next changing moment. And so I'd like to ask Nihei-san to talk about your experience then. Thank you very much. I'm Nihei from Fujitsu. Thank you very much for this opportunity today. Yes, about how we joined RE100. Yes, the trigger was the Paris Agreement in 2015, adoption of which, and with that, we came to understanding that there is a momentum demanding companies to be serious about climate change. And in the case of our company, Fujitsu, we have an internal committee to discuss environmental issues. President is a chair, and we have the meeting of the conference committee like twice a year. And then the RE100 or Paris Agreement related matter were proposed. But before the actual meeting, there was a pre-examination given to the management. At the time, like SBT certification or RE100, when we are to work on that, the feasibility or the validity of the goals or the future costs associated, those things need to be input as information for the discussion. There are so many uncertainty involved, and so the members of the committee had difficulty to say yes right away. And after multiple communications, understanding was deepened among the management or the committee members for the environmental matter. And with the communication, the understanding was deepened, as I mentioned earlier, and also it was the raising awareness that companies do need to work on climate issue. So finally, in 2017, we issued a climate and energy vision that was announced in 2017. And together with that, SBT, at the time, 2 degrees Celsius was the matter, but we were certified for that. And since then, adoption of renewable energy became a natural course for the company. And in adopting renewable energy, participating in Renewable Energy 100 would make our initiative easier. That was the understanding at the time. So the company started to study the possibility of joining RE100. At the time, already, RECO was part of RE100 as the first company to do so. So actually, being the second would be disadvantageous in terms of the publicity, but we decided to become a first gold member of the RE100 as a Japanese company. So we did join RE100, but at the time, we did not have much of the menu for the renewable energy, and cost was also high. And as such, we were not able to make progress at early stage. So that was the reality then. Then the situation changed later after there was a market for certificate for non-fossil fuel and such. Being able to participate in such market was really helpful. Since then, the adoption of renewable energy did not really progress a lot. That was what we experienced as our company.
Thank you very much. So the old report on Nikkei newspaper is shown on the slide. That was on page 1 of Nikkei, right? Because Fujitsu was thought to be very conservative, it was quite eye-catching. And this is from the July of 2018. Not just Fujitsu, but the people from the other companies never thought that this would be taken up on page 1 of the Nikkei newspaper. So this was a starting point where renewables purchase have become a viable option for many businesses. And we have just heard from RECO and Fujitsu that users have sent a signal to the market. And what about the producers of renewables, suppliers of renewables? As representing this community, we have Updater. So can I ask Mr. Mano to speak?
Mano from Updater. We are talking to individuals, providing individuals and companies with renewable energy, electricity. And RECO has said that it declared joining RE100, and there was a signal from the consumers. It's one big factor is the creation of the market. I was in a renewable energy power generation company. The reason I moved to this present company is that we wanted to, in order to create a sound renewable energy market, the consumers must ask for good quality renewable energy. That would lead to the creation of a sound renewable energy market. And I wanted to join the consumer side, and I joined the power company. And RE100 joining companies has increased, and as a result of this, renewable energy market was created. And when a market is created, the companies would think that they need to generate more renewable energy electricity. So it's a virtuous cycle, and the momentum was such that JCLP is a group of companies wanting to procure renewable energy electricity. In 2019, Mr. Ishida said that corporate PPA is such that there are several hundreds, and it's a general practice. But overseas, corporate PPA had been introduced, but in Japan at the time, there were no examples. And so JCLP had occasion where companies got together and lived together and discussed for a time as to how to deal with global warming. It was a retreat where companies got together to discuss these points. And on this retreat, it was discussed that overseas there was corporate PPA. And so in the retreat, there was this discussion, and because we had a drink or two, that added momentum, and we decided to take this on. In 2020, at JCLP, a corporate PPA generation project was launched, and so examples from overseas, we would study that, how that could be localized here in Japan in terms of the laws, and we created templates, and we created model examples of this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You talked about corporate PPA. It started from the retreat and drinking time from the retreat. I remember that as well. Now, we've been talking about RE100 as a first part. And Kotani-san is in charge of RE100 in Japan. And may I ask Kotani-san to talk about your take?
Thank you. I am in charge of RE100 at Climate Group. Thank you. And as was discussed earlier, in 2017, RE100, those companies who are being represented in the panel, have declared the membership, and we have started the program in Japan. And now it has increased to 94 companies in Japan who are now members of RE100. We are the second largest next to the United States. As the membership of RE100 has increased in Japan, the renewables energy market in Japan has also evolved, as Mr. Mano mentioned in 2022, with the RE100 member companies. The first PPA has been concluded, and ever since then, the corporate PPAs have increased dramatically. And the users, such as the member companies of RE100, has pioneered the renewables market in Japan. And another point that RE100 member companies have brought changes in the market, and I would like to take the example of Republic of Korea. For ROK, was thought to be the most difficult market to introduce the RE100 program, but Samsung, LG, and Hyundai, those advanced companies have appealed very actively the necessity of RE100, making policy recommendations and participating in the government-sponsored roundtable discussion meetings, and there has been changes seen in ROK for policies as well. And early this year, President Lee Jae-myung have received a letter from RE100 membership to encourage the importance of RE100. And in the speech by President Lee Jae-myung in June this year, RE100, importance of that, and RE100 industry zone to be launched were mentioned. And the PPA system will be improved, and by the year 2030, the renewables target would be increased to 22 gigawatts. So the RE100, the companies as membership has enlarged in ROK, the market for the renewables have seen dramatic changes.
Thank you very much. REI's Mr. Ishida presented and compared between countries with regard to the introduction of RE, and so Korea was at the lower end, but they are changing. And aside from what is said here, they have restructured governments, and different laws have been passed. And so renewable energy is growing very robustly. And one of the factors in the background is consumers, movements by the consumers. So up until now, we were reviewing the past to see what we could learn. In the past, it was difficult. How did we come to where we are? And the role of consumers, what was the role of consumers? This is what we have discussed. And so what we are faced with now, the headwind, how do we consider renewable energy in symbiosis with the environment, with the community? In the past, just if it were renewable energy, anything was acceptable. But additionality is very important, leading to new developments. And in terms of symbiosis with the community, we need to harmonize with the community. And so new thinking has come out. And what can the consumers do under the present environment? So on this, Mr. Nihei from Fujitsu, please.
Thank you very much. So in terms of the renewable energy electricity procurement of our company, from 2013, we did make smooth progress outside of Japan, but as I mentioned earlier, we were lagging inside of Japan, as mentioned earlier. And the changing point was 2022. That is when the procurement using a non-fossil fuel certificate was able to be procured. That makes us easy to control the procurement volume. Currently, gradually, we're increasing the volume. Last year, 47.5% is our renewable energy rate. This fiscal year, we are hoping or we're expecting that we can reach about 60%. So up until today, volume was important, but now the quality is becoming more important. And GHG Protocol Scope 2, the public consultation is underway now, but the criteria is becoming expected to become more rigid in terms of the quality. So we also have to consider more about the quality going forward. And today, not just additionality, but contribution to the community through PPA, that is now considered to be needed to be increased. Still today, the volume is small, but within this year, we're hoping that we can make a new decision that has to do with the quality.
So for more details, we need to wait for the report being published this year. Thank you. Then in this particular field, you are a pioneer. The RICO has been a pioneer. You have already been involved in various programs. So Mr. Abe, can I turn to you? Yes, thank you. Mr. Nihei of Fujitsu have spoken of the quality of the renewable energy. At RICO, in 2011 March, 2021 at the March, we have a re-evaluation system of the renewables. We have been administering this. When we have declared RE100, we were looking at the means to purchase renewables, but not much was out there in the market. But from the year 2020 onwards, PPAs as a system has become available as an option. So looking at the environment for procuring renewables in Japan have gradually developed. So look from buyer's point of view that there are more choices available, meaning that you need the criteria for evaluation and assessment. If there is only one source, then we can buy from that source. But if there are multiple choices, we need to have a certain standards or criteria based on which we can choose. And we have come up with the system of comprehensive evaluation of renewables power. And as you can see with this table, we have 9 factors to look at to compare the different renewable energy sources, looking at the cost effect, and of course, good for environment or not. Of course, renewables would be good. But what about additionality? And looking at the types of the parcels, for example, if you have coal-firing with fossil fuels, or if you compare with pure solar power, which is better, of course. And if the facility is located in a very distant place, what about that? And what would be the environment of the business? If it is a business having very high score of CDP, then it could grow and further develop. So there are different perspectives, and we have introduced and incorporated all these different perspectives. And we need to have a good coexistence with the community. We need to revitalize the local economy, something not purely to do with environment, but perhaps we need to also give high marks for those elements. How much can the local community be investing in, or how much of a contribution be made to the local community through your power plants? All these need to be considered. And from where are you purchasing the renewable power from? So you need to compare, looking at all these different factors. Initially, we have introduced a system for making comparison for retail sellers of power. But when we have PPA agreement being concluded, we are introducing similar assessment. If there are multiple sources, we are trying to compare using all these different factors. And I believe this system is quite well suited to the situation we face today. But perhaps we need to update the standards and criteria, and we hope that we can continue to use this system.
Thank you very much. Originally, it was about signals for wanting renewable energy, but symbiosis with the region and nature, and also something of value in decarbonization. A more deeper consumer signal is being sent by increasing such consumers' renewable energy in Japan. We'll see a further improvement in quality. I think there's hope for that. I'd like to ask Mano-san, your company is very particular about the quality in terms of renewable energy. So based on that perspective, could you talk to us, bearing in mind what you just heard? There's the issue of mega solar, which is very much under focus. And it's a very crucial period. It could be the Achilles heel. And the discussions are very not detailed at the moment. These are very broad brush. And I feel that energy is such that all energies have risks. There's no energy without risks. Fire, wood, and nuclear power have their own risks. Renewable energy is such that we develop. So we have to do proper development. We have to agree with the community on doing this. We have to make sure that there'll be no negatives, or negatives are dealt with in terms of renewable energy. There is good renewable energy and bad renewable energy. At our company, we wanted to increase good quality renewable energy as much as possible. And so the photograph shown here is a renewable energy where there's a harmonious coexistence with nature. This is in Hyogo Prefecture in Toyooka City. It's the Sakaguchi Tsubouchi Agriculture Future Research Institution and Patagonia International Institute, International Inc. and Mina Denryok Updater has been working together on this. And as biodiversity is also as important as well as dealing with climate change. And we've submitted an application for certification for designation of the area as a site for harmonious coexistence with nature. And so it's an example where we coordinated with different stakeholders, renewable energy, whether it's solar. If we need to coexist with the nature and the community, and that is possible. If you could show the next slide, please. In that sense, I feel what is important is solar sharing. At the moment, this is Japan's energy self-sufficiency rate is 10%. Food self-sufficiency is 40%. So going forward, how to protect Japan's agriculture in the future? How do we protect agriculture and produce food? The total farmland area in Japan is 4.3 million hectares. If we could set up solar in 5% of the land, it would be possible to generate approximately 200 billion kilowatts of electricity. And these would be built in rice paddies. There's a lot of sun, and we don't carve mountains or deforest, cut trees. And so it has a good affinity. The farms have a good affinity with the sun. And so working with the farmers is very important. Renewable energy introduction was looked at in terms of kilowatt hour or ton CO2. But we need to think about what merits there would be for the community and how we can give consideration for the environment of the community. That will become more important. And so in that sense, JCLP and other consumers and the role that they can play and the responsibilities that they have is very important. Who would they be buying from? What kind of power source do they want? Are they looking at contribution to society and consideration of the environment? Companies choosing electricity from such perspectives are very important, and they're playing that role is very important.
Thank you. Let's turn to Kotani-san. Please share your comments. Also touching upon global situation. Yes, as RE100, including Japan, in some markets, the environment and land utilization concerns are being hard, and we do recognize that. And in India, I'd like to share with you an example case in India about the coexistence between energy and local community or nature. In India, rapidly, renewable energy is expanding. With that, responsible renewable energy procurement is being discussed, and climate groups, our team in India is working on that topic. Specifically, together with power users, we are creating a guidance for responsible procurement. So the workers' welfare or procurement of the feedstock or waste or land usage, in those areas, we are discussing what exactly is a responsible procurement. So specific items are included in the guidance. So ultimate goal is to see the collaboration amongst the financial institution and the producer and user of the power so that we can contribute to the procurement and also make the whole thing sustainable. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So everyone is one after another coming up with your comments very effectively and efficiently. So I believe I am exhausting the questions I wanted to ask the panelists. So maybe we can have time, one, two, perhaps give your comments. So once again, Abe-san. Now, I was warned that I should not go beyond the allotted time, but then I am given more time and being told that I should be slower in my remarks. I will try to do so. As I was listening to the discussion, the responsibility of the users do exist. Now, as we have joined the RE100 and we have committed to decide on the deadline that by when we should reduce the carbon emission by to what extent. But then we often concentrate on how much of a percentage of a renewable share have increased, 40%, 50%, and looking at those numbers, you become complacent. And we should be careful of that. Mr. Mano said that we should choose better quality renewables. That is the responsibility of the user, is what has been pointed out. And I do fully agree. As for RECO, we have always been giving good attention to this, and we would like to continue to do so. But RECO alone cannot bring forth an impact on the whole society. So we should work and co-work with the suppliers. So we should approach the suppliers to engage in similar activities. And for electricity menu, we are also engaged in retail business. So some of the mid-sized and smaller-sized companies to try to decarbonize those SMEs would be also an important challenge. So we as a company would like to help those companies to decarbonize and introduce more renewables. Even though headwind may be blowing, we cannot stop and be doing nothing when it comes to climate change actions. So we should continue our efforts, and we would like to work closely together with all of you in the audience.
Nihei-san, please. Measures to deal with climate change. If we are to set goals, it's 2040 or to 2050. It's a long time. But when you realize we are not working for the company at that time, and so we have to pass the baton to the next generation. We have no choice. When I was in high school, I read in a newspaper, so that's several decades ago, let us value and cherish the earth, because the earth is on loan to us from our children and our grandchildren. I think it's an old proverb from the United States, as Saint-Exupéry of The Little Princess said something similar. And so I was convinced about this way of looking at things. It was very compelling, and I remember this to this day. Climate change countermeasures are such that we cannot do this alone. We have to engage others around us to address this issue. Otherwise, it's not realizable. That's my awareness. And so those who are here today and those participating online, for the future, please work together on the expanding to expand the use of renewable energy. Thank you.
Thank you very much for today, Mano. Okotani-san talked about responsible renewable energy procurement. Yes. for the companies to procure renewable energy, it is about, well, actually, company procuring renewable energy is to show attitude about their efforts to work on toward ideal society. Power is what is produced inside of Japan. So depending on what kind of power a company procure, it is a deciding factor for which decides future of the Japan. So we need to have a sense of responsibility. And another point, when it comes to energy, everybody is a stakeholder. So there needs to be a nationwide discussion involving the public. That is very important. After the Great East Japan earthquake, people thought about energy, about their issues. But then, as time passed since then, it seems like people are feeling distance between them and energy issue. People started thinking that energy is a matter of someone else. With this mindset, we may repeat similar mistakes. So everybody needs to have a sense of ownership and have to have a clear idea about what future they want. With that mindset, we need to also discuss what kind of renewable energy is needed and important for the future of Japan. I think that kind of practice is being needed. Thank you very much.
Then Kotani-san, please. Thank you. And thank you very much for inviting me to this panel discussion. The summit this time, I was told that there are many representatives from companies. If there are companies who have not joined RE100, I would like to ask you to please join. But 3 weeks ago, we have gathered companies who are members of RE100, and the number of participants have been more than 100. And when we had the group photo, it was truly overwhelming. So RE100 member companies, I didn't know that there were so many companies, and I was able to keenly feel this impact. Now, even though you may not be able to go for policy recommendation by one company alone, if you join RE100, companies from different industries are working closely together. So we will be able to raise the collective voice to approach the government and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you to all. The present situation of renewable energy in Japan, based on this, when we conduct mundane discussions, we feel we only say it's difficult. But I felt that by looking at the past, this could provide some clues as to what we can do in the future. We still have about 5 minutes remaining, and so up until now, people have been very good at putting together their views. Maybe the JCLP's image looks too clean. So let me mention something that I noticed. What has been discussed is such that the businesses have actually experienced this, and it's a live story of what they have done. And the respective companies, by them taking action, change was brought about, and there's no doubt about this. But those of you who are listening might feel that going forward, renewable energy, it's an uphill battle. It's very difficult going forward. And what we did not discuss today, a lot of issues related to RE, one of which is the cost. It's the largest point, the cost issue. It's a very important point today, because due to lack of time, we cannot take this up outright. It's difficult to do so. But in the world, as was stated by the REI presentation, it's becoming cheaper. This year, it has surpassed that of coal-fired power generation in terms of cost. It's much cheaper now. For those who are actually engaged in business, however, take a different view. When we look at Japanese businesses still feel that renewable energy is still expensive. And as to why this is the case, renewable energy is cheaper, it's a fact. But that's the new built RE plants, the new power sources are such that it's renewable. But the procurement people are in difficulty. The other power sources where depreciation has been completed, and what the new renewable energy where the investment has to be recovered, they compare that, and those on the ground are struggling to see whether RE is expensive or not. And so when we think about this in Japan, if we are to think about cost more, we have to compare RE with other power sources, and we need to create an environment where they can properly compete, and that is a point which I'm thinking about. And in terms of what I think is a major challenge going forward is the environmental value. Perhaps you have heard of environmental value. Those that consider the environment have value. So that should be bought at a higher price. So if you want to do something good for the environment, well, the people have to buy something which is more expensive. And that would be the awareness. But I think there's a trap here. Originally, when you say it's of value to the environment, so we'll buy at a higher price, or we should rather say that what impacts the environment in a negative way would be imposed a cost. So there has to be a cost, an additional cost for those that have a negative environmental impact. It might be difficult. When I discuss with the business, I feel that the companies that are working hard are struggling with the issue of cost because the impact is becoming larger and larger. It's the prisoner's dilemma. People who try hard suffer, but that should not be the case. Those who are generating CO2 should be imposed a cost, and those who are working hard should be able to derive a merit. We hope that the consumers and users could send a signal to this effect. You still might think this is very difficult. I'm not that pessimistic, however. I'm being too long-winded, so I'll stop soon. Here again, talking about JCLP. It has become a juridical cooperation, and this year in August, a solution pitch would be conducted for the first time for difficulties that companies have. The companies that have solutions would offer proposals, and this time, when I looked at different proposals, the struggles, the problems companies are struggling with, there are solutions, many solutions which have not been announced yet. When consumers, users send a message, the supply side will make the effort, and they will be creative. And when this process happens, I think things will become smoother. So we hope that we could start this process together with you. Here again, maybe I'm saying something that's too idealistic and clean.
I'd like to say a few words with regards to the costs. So the renewable energy costs being high, that is being mentioned. But for example, like a solar panel for housing, for like a retail market, the initial investment is rather big, like 1 million yen or 2 million yen. But as you continue to use, rather than it will become economically make sense. And after 10 years, recouping the investment, the electricity can be used as a free power source. So in the short term, renewable energy may be more expensive compared to thermal power, generated power, but already from the long-term view, renewable energy is reasonable. So I think it is to do with the if appropriate investment can be made. So once again, when you take into account the renewable running costs, the renewable energy is to become lower with the cost as you continue to long. So what that means is that both individuals and the companies, what is being asked is whether the investment toward future can be made and whether policy can support that. So long-term perspective, I believe, is the key point. That was my comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this theme. There are many things that we need to continue to discuss. I fully understood this point, but we have just run out of time. So thank you very much. This is the end of the panel discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the speakers of the panel, session 2. Thank you very much, and please be back to your seat. So the power users, toward a even better renewable energy, it is important for the users to send out a demand signal that will encourage suppliers, investors, and policy makers